Okay, welcome everybody. This is Peter Harrison, and we've got Norman on the call as well to just generally discuss the projects, any sort of questions that you may have related to the activities that we're working on. I'm generally going to be sitting in the background. I'm not going to be primarily participating, but Norman will have the majority of the answers to your questions. Norman has been with us, well, many years, maybe 3 or 4, maybe even more than 4 years. And
Yeah,
he'll be a really good resource for you. Ashima similarly has been very active in the repositories over the years. And as a mentor, she has been consistent in providing us with support. Um, I would say that both Norman and Ashima have the most experience, one of the most experiences with the code base, and we'll have a very good idea and understanding of where we need to be. One of the things that we're going to try and do this year is to make sure that we have a MVP of some sort by the end of the year. And what that'll mean is that most of the projects that we are working on or trying to select will be related to getting us back to a working feature set for the various repositories, firstly, and then secondly, we are going to continue our program from last year, where if and when people don't get selected, we may make individual outreaches to people who we know have been very active and successful in the PRs, and we want to get their input into helping us make the product better overall. And the aim of that person's or multiple people's work will be to try and get the number of outstanding issues down to zero, and making sure that just the general reliability of the service is good. And that'll happen for both the Tallow Star projects and then also for SwitchMap as well. We are going to be trying as much as possible over the next few months to create a community, an active community on the repo. We are looking at the moment for a volunteer to help us with community outreach, and we're hoping that that person will start with us within the next month or so. So there'll be quite a lot of things that are starting up new, and we have been listening to the contributors over the years to make sure that the projects get better and better. We have to balance the availability of people and their time with the demands of the projects, and trying to find ways in which we can make things a little more balanced. And one of the ways in which we can do that is by getting more volunteers. You may have noticed that on the PR reviews over the past few months, we have had Christian, who's been with us for quite some time, but then we have two other volunteers that have been working on doing the PR reviews and the issue assignments, and that has been really helpful for us. And based on that success, we're trying to see how we can do some of this other work. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over things to Norman and Ashima, and if you have any questions, please talk with them directly. I think that their inputs will be very useful for you. Okay, so Norman, Ashima, if you can come off mute, and then that'll be useful.
sure. Thank you so much for a great introduction.
Hey, hi everyone.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ashmi.
Um,
So, guys, let's just start taking doubts.
yeah,
Don't hesitate to ask. Like, you guys can ask like, even generic doubts not related to Palisados, just regarding career, regarding resume, anything that you guys feel like.
Uh,
Yeah, Nishant, please go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. So my doubt is regarding that as like if somehow I did not make into Google Summer of Code and somehow my proposal is not selected, what other option should I be like? What should I be doing after that? Like which organization should I be contributing to, or what should be the course of action after the results of GSOC if I do not make it?
So there are few things that we do, like as Peter already mentioned, like we might offer you internship sort of thing, but it's completely our decision. Like it's based on the proposal, based on the contribution, and things like that, based on the project that we want to do. Based on that, we might offer you an internship sort of thing. Other than that, you are free to contribute to our projects, prepare for next year, or maybe like if your contributions are consistent, we might invite you to our organization, like to be a maintainer, to be a code reviewer, something like that. So you can be a part of Palisados even if you are not selected for this one.
Um, Adding another aspect to it, I think, like I assume you would be in your university right now, and this is not the end of the world. So I would just suggest that um, basically, if you are based out of India and you are really looking forward to have a job, maybe in a startup or something like that, so there are many new AI startups that are open sourcing some part of their code. So maybe you can use the exposure, whatever you have gained from the Palisados Foundation, you can contribute in those particular organization as well. And basically, this helps you, the contribution helps you bond with other CEOs and CTOs, and then you are at a better position to get a job at that firm. That's the trend nowadays. So yeah, I think open source can help you this way as well. So it's not just GSOC, it just comes with a lot of other opportunities as well. It's just, you need to dig in and find whatever you're looking for. You will probably get it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. I understood.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Satyam, please go ahead.
Hi, Noman. My question is very simple. I just had a simple doubt. Uh, there's a feature where we create events in the app, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So in that, the event title has a character limit of 20. So is it intended or we can type more than 20?
I think it's intended because we don't want the UI to break because we have to accommodate in the mobile app as well. And event name is not supposed to be a whole paragraph sort of thing. So we might increase it. So like it's not well thought of, like it has to be 20.
No,
Maybe we
like
can
20 is like very small, like 2 to 3 words only fit in.
increase it to 50 or something to make it more comfortable for the users to create event. But yeah, the
Mhm.
limit is intentional.
All right, all right. Thank you.
Other doubts, please?
I'd like to just make a comment, just in general. Somebody was asking a question related to the usefulness of open source in their community and their careers. One of the things that we now have, and you may not realize it, is that we have over 70 people that have passed through the Palisados Foundation with their contributions. And what this has done is that we now have a fairly large community of people who will be willing to potentially provide you with assistance. And if you do searches on uh, social media things like LinkedIn, you'll see that they have had a Palisados experience, and we now have people with Palisados experience working for Apple, Google, Intuit, and Walmart, and some other places. So there are ways in which you can use the network to try and see how you can get some insights into some of these organizations. We have a lot of goodwill from many of these people, primarily because we provided them with the boost in their careers to get to where they need to be. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that another area in which the Palacios Foundation can provide assistance is that many times the past participants want to start launching a business or launching some sort of app. And I get approached from many people about what that may mean, and some of the challenges. People ask me about what the experience has been in doing a startup organization like the one that I have. And similarly, you can reach out to the Palisados grouping just in general, maybe through Slack or something else, where you can ask some of those questions. And maybe what we should do based on that is have a career Slack channel that I think would be useful for people, just so that you can ask some of these questions and then you can just generally get some feedback. I think if we can make the Palacios Foundation be more than just coding experience that is just in passing, it will help to improve some of your career prospects in general. So take that into consideration as you are evaluating what you would like to do and related to your careers, and I think that will be very helpful for you as well. Okay? And this is something that has happened over and over and over again. Another thing that we have seen is many of the participants in the Palacios Foundation and the repositories ask for recommendations from their for their schoolwork, and then also regarding some of their employment. And people approach me on a regular basis about that, based on their contributions. I usually give them feedback as to whether I feel they've been doing too much AI-related submissions, or whether they are worthy of it. But for the most part, people know whether they've done a good job, and they approach me, and I usually provide them with a job letter. That should not just be limited to me. I think in future, what I'm going to do is recommend that they get in contact with some of the other people that have done PR reviews for them, and so that they get at least more than just one letter related to that. So that's another opportunity that you can consider with your work with the Palacios Foundation as well. Okay. Any other questions or comments, doubts?
Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Once again, I'm going to step away and let Norman and Ashima answer the questions. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Yes. I actually had a question related to my personal project. I made a project. I'm sharing the link in chat. As you just said, Peter, that startups and everything you have done will you can just share your experience. I really want your experience about it. I was thinking to launch a startup regarding this project, but as I'm in my college and I'm in my second year, I'm not aware about how can I do it at this point of time. I just thought to make it open source, but then I have to do my stuff as well, and managing it is not something which I can do at this point of time. So, what's your suggestion about it? Basically, Collab is a platform where you can work on your projects all together at a place. It has its own code editor with functionalities like chat and like we raise a PR in GitHub, we can raise a change request, a CR in Collab, and I want to make it a platform where projects can be made more easily, and it comes in handy. Like you can code with your phone as well, and yeah, that's what I want for Collab. So, do you have any suggestions?
I would say, considering the AI trend Ashima will be a better person as she's working a lot on the AI stuff recently.
Um, if I take it and if I look at it, the idea looks really promising, and I understand it's very difficult to manage academics and a startup altogether. I would just suggest um, this that maybe you need to decide for a couple of things yourself first, that whether you are looking for a monetary benefit to it, or do you want to um market it as a SaaS product which you'll be providing, or do you want to market it as a AI tool which all the organization can, basically the developers can use and increase their productivity. And then you need to think whether this is a service which people will pay for, or shall you look forward and make it open source, or so basically you need to fixate a plan for yourself first, pick up your priorities, that whether you want to look into academics first. Are you 100% sure that this project have the potential that will help you get some monetary and other benefits as well? And then you'll have to pave out and start working in that direction for it. So, for example, if you don't want to do it monetarily right now, and you want to just keep it as a project which just stands out in your resume, you can make it open source. You can invite a lot of other people to come in and contribute. And you can also do one thing, you can advertise it on various Discord groups or communities. Like there is one very popular open source program called Girl Script Summer of Code, which runs in India, and the timeline is almost similar to Google Summer of Code. So you can apply as a project to that code. This will help you get so much help from out there, and your project will also overall attain much more code quality to it. So it's just you need to get a direction first, and then you need to decide how you want to mm, just move forward with it. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I have
I
a
have
follow-up
one question.
question. Yeah, yeah, sure.
So, like, do you want to continue it as a money making startup or a college project?
Actually, this was my project. I want to make it as a SaaS project, something which I want to like grow with time. So yeah, a SaaS project which I can earn some money from, because I think it has the potential to really help contributors and developers while making a project.
So I don't give you false hope. So if you want to do it as a college project, then it's a good project. If you want
Yeah.
to make it open source, it's a very good project to have in your resume. But if you want to do it as a full grown startup to pursue a career with or make a full time earning sort of thing, then I'll be very honest. I don't think there is scope, or there are big sharks like Cursor, Copilot, and now launching the Firebase Studio. It's really hard to compete with them considering they are all free. At least in the trial periods, and it's really tough to compete with them considering they have almost infinite source of data, because one has GitHub and the other is just Google. So if you want to do it as a
Um,
college project, then it's
just one
very
thing,
good.
adding to it, I think your project also does not support any major AI features, but they have, and it's not easy to spin up a. Basically, it's all paid, right? To spin a LLM and provide that support. So
Yes, I understand.
Vanshika, I'd like to give you some general advice. And this advice goes for anybody who's going to be thinking about starting up any sort of a business or any sort of a project. The first thing that I'd really recommend to anybody is that if you're planning to do something like this, create a business plan. And it doesn't need to be very complex. Think about the the strengths and weaknesses that you have, the opportunities and threats, but something that they call the SWOT analysis. That's something that I think you should think about. The other thing is that there's a model that is called the Porter's Five Forces model, which is very standard nowadays in almost any MBA program, in which they try to find ways in which you can evaluate the any sort of a market or any sort of an industry. And the five forces are the power of your suppliers, and that means that if you have very few suppliers, then your suppliers have a lot of power in setting your pricing, and they now become an external source of uncertainty in your business. Then there's the power of your clients. If you have very few clients, that means they have power because they know that you can't go anywhere else. And if you want to have more power over your clientele, you try to see how you can have a larger grouping of clients so that it helps to diversify some of your risk. The another thing is that you want to evaluate the role of new technologies in your product, and it seems as if AI would be one of them. And you want to think of whether that also helps to create some sort of barrier to entry. And in many of these evaluation processes, they're trying to figure out whether the industry is healthy for you to get into because they try to see what challenges you're going to face and what barriers new competitors may have. Similarly, I was mentioning competitors. Competitors are another area of analysis that you want to do. Uh, are they stronger than you? Are they weaker than you? What does that mean in terms of your chances of success? And that is another factor that you want to take into consideration. Then you want to also evaluate whether there's a lot of rivalry inside the environment, and try to figure out whether all these five factors work in your favor or against you. As much as possible, there are different types of barriers to entry into some of these industries. Some of the some of the most obvious barriers to entry are structural. There may be regulation in your particular industry that prevents new people from coming in. There could be a lot of money that is required, like a lot of capital. If there's not a lot of capital as a barrier to entry, then you're going to get lots and lots of competition. So that's something that you may want to take into account. Uh, there may be also just a mindset where people just haven't thought about it yet. And that could be a barrier, but it's not a really powerful barrier. But what it does mean is that if people haven't thought about it yet or don't think it's a viable solution, then that might buy you some time, by which time you could potentially expand your business to a size that makes it more formidable inside the industry that you're going to be in. So that's another thing that you may want to take into consideration. And also, your competitors may, in terms of a structural advantage or disadvantage, is that your competitors may have sunk a lot of money into one methodology of doing something and may not necessarily be willing to change. And that may mean recoding, that may mean trying to um, divert their resources from a particular income stream from one set of clients to a brand new income stream from another set of clients, and they may not want to do that. This is part of the reason why many companies, rather than trying to launch something brand new where they see a market opportunity, that they go and just buy one of the emerging players in that particular area to get to where they want to be. This sometimes creates conflicts in which the regulators may say that you're trying to stifle competition in that particular area, and that could be something that could provide difficulties for organizations in the future. This is something that has faced or Meta is facing right now in the United States, where the government is saying that through the purchase of WhatsApp and Instagram, Facebook effectively removed competition in certain areas of social media so that they could have a dominant effect. So these sorts of things are things that you need to take into consideration in getting to where you want to be. There are some other things that you also should take into consideration. When you're launching a business, you want to make sure that you really, really want to do what you want that you're doing, because quite often people will say they want to get something done, but don't have that passion. And passion can come from different ways. I think passion is a word that is used very, very lightly in the marketplace. People, it quite often passion is something that is very intense, but then eventually fades away. It needs to be more of a conviction that you have a really good idea, that you are willing for it to reach its obvious conclusion, and then from there use that as a driving force to evaluate yourself and the business. And you need to evaluate yourself in a very, very critical way. Do you have the time? Are you getting the support from the various types of people who you're going to need? And and how is that sort of support going to be useful for you in the pursuit of your objective? Now, one of the things that uh, startups quite often make as a mistake is that they try to like if in your case you're looking for funding, it doesn't seem as if you're looking for funding just yet. You're just doing a proof of concept. But when the time comes for you to start looking for funding, one of the things that people always want to do is to try to convince the source of funding to make them be to convince them that your idea is the right idea and the best idea, etc. And you fall into the trap of quite often insisting and reaching out to people, the same people over and over again to try to get them to say yes, yes, this is a good idea. And that quite often can be a waste of time. And if somebody immediately understands what you are thinking about, those are the types of people you want to work with. So instead of trying to work harder and harder and harder to get to yes, work to try and see whether the person is saying no. Get to know quickly, because then you know whether you're wasting your time or not. But then when you're doing that, ask the question from that person who's saying no, the following. All right, so you are not interested in this, firstly. Secondly, do you know anybody who may be interested in this? Because then that is a lead for you to go down the next path to try and ask the question. And then that is something. And then if you realize that you have a particular type of weakness in the idea or the proposal, they will probably let you know that. And then you can say, like, how can I improve upon this so that I can get to where I need to be? And that may mean that you need to hone your skills in a particular area, update your code or your features, do something about your marketing, the stability of your stuff, etc. And that really will help. One of the best things that you can also do is have some sort of a pitch deck, and I know lots of people talk about that. And try and keep it really, really short, 5 or 6 pages. If you can't, if you cannot condense your idea in 6 to maybe 10 pages in total in a PowerPoint presentation with very few bullets and just it's things that you can talk about, then you haven't quite got it, and that will definitely help you. But you can't write the PowerPoint solution thing that you'll be sending to people if you don't have a business plan, right? Because the PowerPoint presentation is a summary of what you're thinking of doing, and that provides you with the guidance as to where you want to be. Okay, so that's something that you really need to take into consideration. Now, I've mentioned this to many people over the years, and if you're going to be doing a startup or any sort of activity, one of the things that you need to do is to, as much as possible, get the support of people in your day-to-day life, the people that are close to you, your family or whoever it may be. And if you have somebody that is a significant part of your life, that could be maybe parents or maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend or wife, husband, etc. I really would suggest to you that if you're really convicted with this, like you have this conviction, that you sit down with them and ask them, what is the minimum that you want from me? And the reason for that is because if you're really convicted, if you really have this conviction, it's the minimum that you're going to be able to give, because that helps you to set a floor for the amount of time that you're going to dedicate to this thing, right? Because if you cannot meet that minimum, then you are going to find yourself having conflict in that relationship. And that's going to be really important. The last thing you want to do is to have real stress in meeting the goals of what you want to achieve in the work or staying up late at night, etc., and then having to deal with additional drama in your life when you come home or meet those people at family reunions or whatever it may be. And so that is something that you have to take into consideration. And then periodically come back to what those minimums are and adjust them accordingly. And sometimes that can be intuitive. People realize that things are getting a little better, etc. But the one thing that I recommend if you're going to be doing something like this is don't make sure that you comply with that minimum. Because if you violate that minimum more than once, you're going to start finding that you are getting closer and closer to an outcome in your personal life that you don't want to do. And you really want to, as much as possible, focus on what you're trying to achieve. So those are some of the major things that I would recommend to you as someone that's trying to get into a particular area. And Norman mentioned this, I think Ashima mentioned it to some degree. You need to think of ways in which you're going to earn some sort of an income from the idea. And in some respects, there's a freemium model that everybody knows about, and subscriptions are generally better than having a model in which people use your product and never come back. And the reason for that is because you want to have a regular revenue flow so that you can plan your activities, etc. And that can be really, really good for you. So take some of that into consideration when you're doing your evaluations. So I think those are the primary things that I can think of. But then there's one final thing, and Norman mentioned this, and I think Ashima also mentioned it, is that so many people are trying as much as possible to create these LLMs, and they're trying to do AI based on lots of things. And they are using models that are publicly available, trained on things that are publicly available, etc. And what that means is that frequently you may not necessarily have a competitive edge because you're competing as an organization with all these various models and methodologies. So one of the ways in which you can create a barrier to entry or to create some sort of value would be, we're seeing that this data and these models are out of your control, would be to start thinking about ways in which you combine multiple models to get to where you want to be in some unique way. And that can also provide you with an opportunity. But probably more important, and this is something that people don't really talk about a lot, at least I haven't seen it, is that the true value in a lot of this AI stuff, and the true value in many things, is in the data. The money is in the data. And um, OpenAI and all these other companies, they're scouring the earth for data, and they're using that data to come up with their conclusions. And you, with your limited resources, may not have access to that data, and may not be able to compete. So that's one of the reasons why you may want to use these varieties of models to get you where you want to be. However, there are some advantages that you could have related to this. Now, if the money is in the data and the value in your idea is in the data, then what you need to do is to find data that is hard for the big companies to access. And that may mean finding ways in which you can get data that is uniquely yours or unique to your target audience, and then use that to come to some conclusion. So one of the things that you may want to consider, just in general, is working on some sort of relationship with a company or companies or sources of data that are not openly available on the internet, and try to use that data to come up with models that could be useful for the target audience. So that may be a company that has unique data. It could be manufacturing data, or it could be data related to their clients, etc. And then from there, expand upon it to get to where you want to be. And this is something that the Tallo application could potentially have some useful information, maybe not necessarily in this GSOC round, but maybe next year, where if we can get to an MVP, we have information related to data from the various organizations. We could potentially do things like suggest to administrators ways in which they could improve attendance for certain types of events, so that they can improve upon the engagement of their members. Another thing that could be done is evaluating the types of posts that get the most types of thumbs up or likes, etc., and then use that as a methodology to recognize the topics and conversations that are getting more and more insights, or more and more commentary, and then that can then be used to create new events and do various other types of outreach that would be very useful to the organization. So I've been rambling quite a lot related to how to start a business and related to some of the things that you could do. But I think these sort of give you general ideas as to what you can do to really launch something and have success. And I would always suggest to everybody that if you have the opportunity to start a business, start the business. Just get it started, and even if you fail, you learn. No, it may seem as if, in my particular case, that I started a business and it went very well. This was probably my fifth or sixth attempt at starting a business, and it taught me a number of things. I went into I found an opportunity with some friends of mine in Silicon Valley, where they thought that they could launch a business in testing integrated circuits. And these were guys that were doing it on a regular basis. And they said that, yeah, they're really, really interested in it. And as we started to create the business plan and doing the things, I realized that they really weren't that interested in it. When the time came for them to say, let's launch the business, let's go, they didn't have either the willpower or the security of being able to get started. And one of the things that we always need to think about is that if you're going to be starting a business and you have a lot of fixed costs, like say, for example, you have a mortgage and you're not sure whether you'll be able to cover that mortgage, or you may have rent, This is one of the things. This is one of the reasons why having a partner in starting the business is really important. You may want to talk with somebody and say, look, you need to hold on to a job so that I can continue to launch where and follow my dreams. And and that's part of the reason why you need to have this need to talk to whoever this person or partner is and ask them what is the minimum? What is the minimum that is required from you? Like, um, how many, like, when do you want to see me? Like, how many, like, when do you want to have discussions? Like, how many days of vacation should we have together? Little things that people just forget about. Those are really, really important. And so this integrated circuit testing thing, it fell through. At one point, I wanted to launch a business selling stuff on eBay. And I started actively reaching out to manufacturers of products in the United States to try and see whether I could bulk purchase stuff and then sell it on eBay. But then I realized that many of the manufacturers had the idea already, and they were doing direct sales through eBay and various other platforms to get things done. So you learn things when you do starting a business, and it helps you to continue. And if you fail, you just once again you try and try again to get to where you want to be. There are two times in which people succeed in starting businesses. So there are three general times. The one of the times in which people really have start businesses is when they have no other responsibilities and that they can give their complete attention to a particular type of idea and really go for it a lot. And then there are times after that you start a family and the distraction of doing these things just doesn't work. And you find that maybe when your children reach the teenage years or just about to get into college, you realize that you now have a lot of time that's available. And many people dismiss this period, like when you're in your 40s and maybe in your 50s, as a midlife crisis. And it's not so much a crisis. What happens is that, and I experience this, is that your children start leaving, and then you start thinking to yourself, okay, now the children have left. All these ideas that I've wanted to pursue all this time, maybe I can start thinking about it as something that I can work with. And by that time, you have the experience, right? It's not that you have the experience, you have additional contacts that you didn't have. You've you've learned from some of the mistakes that you've had in the past, and that provides you with new insights as to what to do and what not to do in getting the business off the ground. So, you they don't talk about it a lot. Many of the posts and things that you see are posts related to things like the 30 people under 30 who have made a contribution to the world, and you look at it and say, oh, my things are. I'm not one of those people. Where am I? Who am I? What am I going to do? And if you wait, but still keep trying. If you wait and you continue onwards, when you reach a certain stage, you might find yourself in a much better position. And so, for example, here's in my particular case, if you look at my resume, I didn't go to a fantastic school in engineering. I went to a school in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, and yet, because of my experiences, because of my being able to prove myself over and over again in various other businesses, I managed to get to Google and Netflix and some of these other places. And by that time, where I went to school didn't matter. Right? It was the context that I had, the experiences that I had that started to make people take me more seriously in getting to where I want to be. So you have to evaluate many of these things in trying to consider how you start your business or how you start the project that you want to get into. And that's going to be Um, that's going to be really important. So I mentioned two areas in which people start businesses, and the first one is when you're relatively young, and the other one is when you're relatively older. And if you look at statistics, most people that start businesses are in their 40s and 50s, not so much in their 20s. The people that tend to start their businesses and get lots of funding and all of that stuff really easily, etc., are people that have gone to very, very good schools and have got very, very great grades, right? And people are willing to take a chance on them. But what about everybody else? And everybody else goes through a different process, and you just have to evaluate what that means. But keep trying, don't stop, and get to where you want to be eventually. The third set of people that start businesses are people that have no choice. And that is the scariest part, right? Because you're saying to yourself, what am I going to do? How am I going to get to where I need to be? And uh, many of times when people have no choice, it's all of a sudden. And they start things like consulting or whatever. And that can be very, very daunting. So if you can, just as a general life lesson, um, if you're in a position where you have no choice to start a business, it really does, or start something because of whatever it may be, I would really suggest to you, as much as you can, is to have about 6 months of savings just in your bank account, if you can. Just slowly get towards that so that you can survive and get to where you want to be if you decide to make that switch, or you don't have that opportunity to do something on your own terms. And this can really help you in the long run. It helps you with your frame of mind. It helps you with many, many things. The stuff that I see on LinkedIn posts, etc., about the strategies that you should do in terms of getting a new job, etc. They don't talk about some of these other things, and the fact that you need to have a little bit of a cushion, and that you should be always thinking about what that cushion needs to be to get to help you with some of these harder times. These are things that you should be taking into consideration all the time. All right, so I'm I'm done. I think I spoke non-stop for the past half hour. I didn't really want to do that, but I hope that has provided you with some insights, Vanshika, and for some of the others. So that's all.
Yes, thank you so much. These were the best advices I ever had, and I will try to follow them.
Okay, good. Do we have any other questions? Well, and this is just in general. Norman is here, and maybe Norman has tried things over the years too, so maybe he has some other advice.
Yeah, I already mentioned in the beginning, like you just need to figure out like it's if it has the like market potential or not. Like you have to figure out your competitors first. Like if you are trying to compete with Google, Microsoft, it's tough. You cannot do it as a side project. If you are competing with the big giants, you have to give it all.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. I will focus on that as well. Thank you, Numan.
All the best. Do we have any other doubts?
No other questions? All right, let's just go quickly around the room and just ask people directly. So I see Abby's on the call. Abby, do you have any questions or comments?
I actually joined late, so
Okay.
but like everything that you have said, I'm actually like thinking about like a business and stuff. So I think it would be like really helpful. So thank you for that.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, and Satyam, do you have any questions?
No, not yet. But your advice was really great. I think I may start like small startup in my college also.
Okay. Yeah, and there's something else I didn't mention. If you're going to be working with like partners in the business, it's really good to try and set what the boundaries are going to be. And in some cases, it may also help to have very little ego in getting to where you want to be. So, for example, when I started my business, the three of us were more or less in the same age and stage of life, and that really helped with us having a common view as to where we wanted to go. And uh, it helped in that because we were more or less in the same age and stage of life, it made us understand the perspectives of the other person. And I think part of it also was that we were more mature, and that also helped. And what we did was that we spoke to one another and we said, all right, um, we need to specialize in particular areas and try as much as possible not to step on each other's toes. So what happened was that one of us decided to be the president, and everybody wants to be the leader, the supreme leader, and I have to admit I really wanted to be that. And the guy who was president said, Peter, you look a little better than I do because you've got all this other stuff like the Google and Netflix, etc. And I said to him, um, you've actually run this sort of a data center business. I think you would be the better person, right? So I stepped back, right? And the temptation would be, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get this. But I knew this person's strength. Sean had started business before related to this, and where the weakness was in terms of his and where his experience was on the IT side and trying to figure out how to get some of these systems in place to get us to where we want to be, etc. And that's where I helped out. And if there were questions about the strategy of the organization, where we were going to be, I defer to Sean. And I said, Sean, you are the leader. This is what. But Sean also respected what I said, and he listened to me and worked well together. And then we had Ben, who was on the financial side. He had a very impressive pedigree in terms of his background, and we defer to him in terms of the finding financing to get to where we want to be. Now, remember, I was telling you earlier on that um, we wanted to get to know as quickly as possible. And when we were approaching people for funding, we told them, look, we are uh, engineers. We don't know a lot of stuff related to financing. So, okay, we respect the fact that you say no to what we're planning on doing, but we need help. Right? Can you give us advice, and can you tell us somebody who we can approach to help us with this thing? And we interviewed maybe three or four people, and eventually Ben came on board. And we said, all right, the three of us are going to work on things together. And there needs to be a certain degree of selflessness in this, and there needs to be a certain degree of maturity. And one of the things that has been very good for us as an organization in where we have been is that the three partners in the business, even when there were times where the three of us were getting no salary, and I think we got no salary for almost a year because the investors were saying, look, you guys are not performing. You need to be doing stuff to to prove your worth. During that time, we respected each other, and we did not start shouting and all this screaming that you hear about in Silicon Valley. That just didn't happen. And it's because of the maturity, because we had this delegation of responsibilities, that we had a respect for people. And of course, it requires three partners that are mature to get us to where we want to be. So, quite often, people are going to say that we need to get the brightest and smartest people. you need to think about, especially in the early days of your organization, you need to think of the culture of the grouping that you use or start with to get to where you want to be. And if that culture is dysfunctional, then you're not going to be in a good position to succeed. And one of the best ways in which you can reduce dysfunctional organizations to have good documentation. But that's not so much at the very, very early stages. If you have good documentation, it helps when you're starting to bring new people in because you can just point them to the documentation and say, like, this is what works or doesn't work. And that's part of the reason why, with the Palisades Foundation, based on some of that understanding that I have of documentation, it's why we've tried as much as possible to have the automated documentation in the pull requests. That is why we've done all those videos to let people be aware of what to do, and that they don't have to ask any questions, just watch the videos. Those are the types of things that help in sort of making sure that you set the tone of what the culture of the organization is going to be. And then also, it helps you to delegate because when you're starting a company, the faster you can delegate responsibility and then validate the delegation, the better it is because that's the only way you're going to have time to really focus on the core areas of the business that are very important to you. So, very long answer to some of the question. It wasn't even a question, the statement that you mentioned, Satyam, but that's some further insights. All right, Nishant, uh, before we close off, I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask questions or do anything. Nishant, do you have any questions or comments, doubts?
I have a I just want to have your opinion on the thing that I'm doing. Can I get your opinion? Can I ask it?
Yeah, you can ask whatever you want, but in
Okay.
relation, okay, but in relation to the projects and the evaluation of the projects, I don't evaluate
Oh,
projects. Okay, so
okay. No,
eh,
it's not evaluation of the projects. It's
okay,
like something related to the startups only.
okay, yes, go ahead.
Okay. So I do a bit of freelancing work. So I got attached to one of the companies that is a Euro-based startup. So what they do is, uh, their functionality is pretty much simple. So they click a photograph and after that they summarize it. So it's sort of a note-making Instagram. This is what I have got to know about the application that they're working. So their code base is like TypeScript plus Next.js, and they have a mobile app too that is based on that. So I just wanted to ask if somehow I continue to work with the startup, is there a chance that this startup will have a very bright future in the coming days? I just want to have this idea clear in my mind. So, what is your opinion on this topic?
If you're working for startups, by definition, they're going to be high risk,
Okay.
and you need to think about what is the value of the startup. And one of the value of the startup, in some cases, is the experience that you're going to gain. And think about it from that perspective as well. So it's not just the the immediacy of it; it's the experience. And as you work with more and more of these companies, you will start to feel or get a better vibe about whether they are going to be successful or not. And I think that would be helpful. Um, and because you're working with them on the periphery, you are in a better position to think about that. Okay, Norman. Okay, thanks, Ashim. I saw your note. And Norman, you may, I think you came off mute. You may have some comments on that.
Yeah, sure. So I have been working for startups for last like think couple of years, and I would say there are two three things you need to check before joining a startup, especially in these. Just check if they have funding or not. If you have they have funding, just ask if they have run before at least 6 to 7 months or not. If they have it, then you
Okay.
can give it a try for sure. And I would say in your early career, it's a very plus point to work for startups because you will get to know a lot of aspects which you will never get to know in a big tech. So you can give it a try, but
Okay. Sure.
make sure they have a runway for at least 6 months because they might not tell you that the financial status of the company, but there are sometimes if they run out of cash, they might start laying off. They might have to if they have, like, it's not in their hands.
Okay, okay. So I will check all these 3 points in the startup that I'm currently working, and if somehow they are not into it, I might reconsider my decision about working in the startup. So thank you very much, sir, for answering this question.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next one is Manish. Let's just do Manish and then Abby, we can get back to you. Manish, please go ahead. Do you have any questions, doubts, or stuff?
No, sir. I joined very late,
Oh,
so I would
okay.
like to watch the whole video in YouTube later on.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's go back to Abby. You had a question?
Yeah, I would like to ask you about like the idea stage of a business. Like you get like all this small, like random ideas. So how do you know which one is the right one? Like what was your experience?
Well, you have to make mistakes, and you have to, um, and it's really going to be, yeah. And Noman says you have to trust your instinct to one extent, but if you the instinct is one thing, but the creating a business plan moves you from having an instinct to validating that the instinct is really what works. And when you write a business plan, you need to be critical, right? And that will help you to start thinking about things like this is where how I'm going to be able to make money. Um, you talk about the amount of time that is going to take you, whether you have sufficient funding or reserves of savings that can help you to weather the storm when the time when it's necessary. The business plan is really important. And Vanchika mentioned something here that um, you can create something based on or an idea based on an experience that you've had. And many people, when you read or hear stories from the various startup people, they talk about having this inspiration or they had this vision of where they wanted to be, what they wanted to do. But quite often it's because they've recognized that there's some inadequacy in their life or their professional life, etc. In my particular case, eventually we realized we came upon the solution where the data center industry had some disadvantages or some areas that needed improvement, and we decided to get involved with it. It's not just a question of inspiration. It can be because you recognize some sort of uh, an opportunity, and because you realize that there's some hardship, and if you realize that if you can say to yourself, I wish I had this particular thing, it would it it would be really helpful. And um, uh, think of think of times in your professional career or something, just stuff that you've done in in a different context, in ways in which you feel you can do the improvements. But then, most importantly, create a business plan. Because if you don't have a business plan, you're just going to be trying stuff, and without a goal, without an objective, and that's not going to be um, suitable. So it's going to be really important for you to do that as well. I hope that just generally answered your question. And then if you have business plans, or just jot down the questions or the comments that you have on a particular in terms of your strategy, etc. I think it would be useful. But the there are many websites and places in which they'll talk about how to create a business plan. I would really suggest that if you're going to be doing it, look at the SWOT analysis, do the Porter's Five Forces model, which is something that is fairly standard in MBA programs right now, and use that as the basis for creating a plan and a strategy of where you want to be and go. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right. I think we've come to an end. I don't think there's anybody else that's on the call that has any other questions, but thank you very much. And we'll be in touch with you. The mentors are constantly evaluating the GSOC um, projects, and we're going back and forth on various things. It's always not an easy challenge for us, but we are always cognizant of trying to um, do the right thing. It's not easy, and um, give us the benefit of the doubt when the final announcements come out. And like I mentioned before, we will more than likely have one or two internships that are going to be geared towards just generally fixing the code base and making things right. And stay tuned for that as well. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And this has been really good. And I hope to have this video up on YouTube in a few minutes. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you.